Swear to God, Nigel said, this shit just moved. Chevette, with her eyes closed, felt the blunt back of the ceramic knife press into her wrist. There was a sound like an inner tube letting go, and then that wrist was free. His hands rough and quick. Chevette's eyes opening to a second pop, a red blur whanging back and forth around the stacked scrap. Every wall in this narrow space racked with metal, dusty jam jars stuffed with rusting spokes. Nigel's workshop where he built his carts. You okay? Nigel's greasy hair in his eyes, and a cocktail toothpick stuck in the corner of his mouth. That? Chevette bent over and threw up, managing to get most of it into an open, empty paint can. Hey, Nigel dancing around her, unwilling in his shy, bearish way to touch her, his big hands hovering, anxious that she was sick and worried she'd puke over his work. Chev? Nigel shifted foot to foot, then turned and peered through the shard of lucite that served as his one window. It was vibrating with the wind. Storming, he said. Storming down rain. Nigel took the toothpick from his mouth. Something's wrong, he said. I can tell. Nigel, she said, standing up. Somebody just put that thing on me for a joke, understand? It moved, he said. I saw it. Well, not a funny joke, okay? But I knew where to come. To you, right? And you took it off. Nigel shook his hair back into his eyes, shy and pleased. I gotta go now, bending to pick up the paint can. I'll toss this. Sorry. It's a storm, Nigel said. Don't go out in a storm. I've got to, she said. I'll be okay. Thinking how he'd kill Nigel, too, if he found her here. Hurt him. Scare him. Nigel, you got a screwdriver you'll give me? A flathead? Both hands offered it to her, Nigel's eyes hiding behind his hair, watching. I like you, Chevette. I know, she said. I know you do. From the entrance to Nigel's workshop, Chevette watched an awning collapse, gallons of silver water splashing all at once from a bulging canvas bathtub that gave way with a sharp crack, instantly becoming several yards of flapping, sodden cloth. Half the lights were out, she saw, but that could be because people had shut them down. Then she caught the edge of that weird pink flash you get when a transformer blew, as she heard it boom. That took care of most of the remaining lights, and suddenly she stood in near darkness. She moved out into the center of the deck, trying to watch out for fallen wires. She remembered the can in her hand and flung it sideways, hearing it hit and roll. Proj, she told herself. They'll get you if you stay here. They who? The one with the gun. He'd come for the glasses and killed Sammy. Had those people sent him, the ones who called up Bunny and Wilson, the owner? Rent-a-cops. Jesus, she said. Where am I going? Chev? That you? And there was Lowell. Sitting up cross-legged on top of a rusty cooler, sit shrimp across the front, smoking a cigarette, watching the rain run off the shrimp man's awning. She hadn't seen him for 3 weeks now, and the only thing she could think of was how she really must look like total shit. That skinhead boy they call Codes was sitting up beside him, black hood of a sweatshirt pulled up and his hands hidden in the long sleeves. Lowell was grinning around the glow of that cigarette. Well, he said, you gonna say hi or what? Hi, Chevette said. Rydell got Warbaby's map out of his jacket pocket. It showed where this girl lived and how to get up there. Right up on the roof of this damn thing, in a shanty stuck to the top of one of the towers they hung the cables from. Stairs here, then you went along this walkway, took some kind of elevator. Then the rain hit, the wind upping its velocity a couple of notches and the locals diving for cover, leaving Rydell to hunch in the angle between a couple of old-fashioned vending machines. A canvas awning came down, its wooden braces snapping like toothpicks, spilling maybe 20 gallons of rain. And right then was when he saw her, Chevette Washington, right out in plain sight. Just like he was dreaming. Not 20 feet away, just standing there. Solid streams of rain were coming down, splashing on the deck. There was a pink flash like lightning, off down the bridge. He thought he saw her fling something to the side, but if he stopped to check it out, he might lose her. She was moving now, avoiding the waterfalls. Trying to stay out of sight, he managed to walk right under one of those waterfalls, right down the back of his neck. Just then he heard somebody call to her. Chev? That you? and he went down on one knee in a puddle behind this stack of salvaged lumber. ID positive. Their waterfall behind him was making too much noise for him to hear what was said then, but he could see them. A young guy with a black leather jacket, a lot newer than hers, and somebody else in something black with a hood pulled up. There was a sweatshirt, Rydell saw, with sleeves that hung down 6 inches past his hands. He looked like a floppy shadow from some old movie Rydell had seen once. Then they were moving, the two of them on either side of her, and the shadow glancing back to check behind them. He caught a fraction of white face and a pair of hard, careful eyes. He counted 1, 2, 3. Then he got up and followed them. He couldn't say how far they'd gone before he saw them drop. It looked like straight out of sight. He wiped rain from his eyes and tried to figure it, but then he saw that they'd gone down a flight of stairs. He could hear music as he came up on it and see this bluish glow, which proved to be from this skinny little neon sign that said in blue capital letters, Cognitive Dissidence. He stood there for a second, hearing water sizzle off the sign's transformer, and then he just took those stairs. It was warm down there. It was like walking into a steam bath. It crowded. He went over to the bar and found a space at the end. Beer, he said, and didn't look up when somebody put one down in front of him. He closed his eyes and drank about half of it at one go. As he opened his eyes and put it down, somebody beside him said, Tumble? He looked over and saw this jawless character with little pink glasses and a little pink mouth. What? Rydell said. Your phone, the pink-mouthed man said. Or fax. Guaranteed tumble 1 month. Unlimited long domestic. You need overseas? We can talk overseas. Wait a sec, you're talking about doing that thing to a pocket phone, right? Where you don't have to pay the company? The man just looked at him. Well, thanks, I appreciate it, but I just don't have any phone on me. If I did, I'd be happy to take you up on it. He decided it was time to risk turning around and checking the place out. He swung his shoulder around and saw that Japanese woman, the one he'd seen that time up in the hills over Hollywood, when he'd been cruising with Sublet. She was standing up on a little stage, naked, her long, curly hair falling around her to her waist. Rydell heard himself grunt. Hey, he said, wait up. That woman up there? The pink glasses tilted. That's a hologram, the man said in a completely different voice, and walked away. Damn, said the bartender. You just set a record for blowing off Eddie the shit. Earned yourself a beer, my man. The bartender was grinning at Rydell. Call him Eddie the shit, 'cause he ain't worth one. Don't give another. He uncapped a beer and put it down beside the other one. Say, Rydell said, that lady up there. That's Josie's dancer, the bartender said. You watch. She'll dance her in a minute, as soon as there's a song she likes. The bartender pointed. Rydell saw a very fat woman in a wheelchair, her hair the color and texture of coarse steel wool. Both her hands were hidden inside something that sat on her lap like a smooth gray plastic muff. Her eyes were closed, face expressionless. Josie's always projecting, the bartender said, like it was something that couldn't really be helped. From that thing on her lap? That's the interface, the bartender said. Projectors, well, there. He pointed. Top of that NEC sign. Rydell saw a little black gizmo clamped to the top of this old illuminated sign. He looked back at the fat woman in the wheelchair and felt sad. Angry, too. Like he'd lost something. Shit, Rydell said, and put his mind to looking for Chevette Washington in all this crowd. Then the music changed. The Japanese woman, the hologram, Rydell reminded himself, raised her arms and began to dance. A sort of looping shuffle. Rydell leaned there on the bar, watching and wondering what he should do next. Warbaby's shopping list went like this. Best, he got the glasses and the girl. Next best was the glasses. Just the girl was definitely third, but a must if that was all that was going. Josie's music slid out and away for the last time, and the hologram's dance ended. So people got up from a table near where Chevette Washington was sitting. Rydell was in there quick. He still wasn't close enough to pick out what they were saying, but he could try. Whatever Chevette Washington and her guy were discussing, it looked to be getting sort of heated. Her guy, he thought. Something there in her body language that said pissed off girlfriend. All this abruptly coming to nothing at all as every conversation died, and Rydell looked up to see Lieutenant Orlovsky, the vampire-looking cop from SFPD Homicide, stepping in from the stairwell. He stood there, little streams running off the hem of his coat and pooling around his wingtips, while he unbuttoned the coat with one hand. Still had his black flak vest on underneath, and now that hand came up to rest on the olive-drab butt of his floating breech H&K. Spotting Chevette Washington in her corner, Orlovsky walked over to her table, still taking his time, his hand still on that gun. It seemed to Rydell like the Russian just might be about to haul out and shoot her. Sure looked like it, but what kind of cop would do that? Now, Orlovsky stopped in front of their table, just the right distance, too far for them to reach him, and far enough to allow room to pull that big gun if he was going to. The boyfriend, Rydell was somehow pleased to see, looked fit to shit himself. Bald head looked like he'd been cast in plastic, just frozen there, hands on the table. Between his hands, Rydell saw a pocket phone. Orlovsky jerked the brim of his plastic fedora, just this precise little fraction, and said, "Get up." Rydell looked at her and saw her trembling. There was never any question the Russian meant her and not her friends. Chevette Washington stood up, shaky, the rickety little wooden chair going over behind her. Out. The hat brim indicated the stairs. Rydell heard his own knees creak with tension. He was leaning forward, gripping the edges of the table. He could feel old, dried pads of gum under there. The lights went out. Much later, trying to explain to Sublette what it had been like when Josie whipped her hologram on Orlovsky, Rydell said it looked sort of like the special effect at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, that part where those angels came swirling out of that box and got all over those Nazis. But it had all been happening at once for Rydell. When the lights went out, they all went, everything, and Rydell just tossed that table sideways and went for where she'd been standing. And this ball of light had shot down, expanding. It was the color of the hologram's skin, kind of honey and ivory, all marbled through with the dark of her hair and eyes. Orlovsky swatted at it, and that kept him from getting his gun out. But it also gave off enough light to let Rydell see he was grabbing the girl and not boyfriend, just sort of picking her up and running best he could for the stairs. Orlovsky yelled something, but it must have been in Russian. Rydell ran up those stairs with Chevette Washington held out in front of him like a big bunch of groceries. He was just lucky she didn't get an eye or break any of his ribs. Whoever had grabbed her, she just kept kicking and punching right up the stairs backwards. Then she was out on the deck and looking at some kind of plastic machine gun in the hands of another one of these big, ugly raincoat guys. This one with no hat and his wet hair slicked back from a face with the skin on too tight. "You drop her now, fuckhead," this one with the gun said, had an accent out of an old monster movie. "War," the one who grabbed her said, coughing. "Baby." Sounded American, but not West Coast. In a cheap nylon jacket with one sleeve half ripped off at the shoulder, white fuzzy stuff hanging out. "War, baby," the guy said. "War baby sent me to get her. He's parked back there past those tank trap things, waiting for me to bring her out." "Arcady," it was the one in the plastic hat coming up the stairs behind the guy who'd grabbed her. He was holding up something that looked like a miniature aerosol can. He gestured with the little can back down the stairs. "You use capsicum in a closed space like that," said the one who grabbed her. "People will get hurt. Get you some permanent sinus problems." "Why you grab her?" asked the tight-faced man. "She could have gotten away in the dark, couldn't she?" The one with the hat was behind her now, jerking her arm up in a hold. "Let me go." "Hey," the one who grabbed her said, like it made things okay. "These men are police officers. SFPD Homicide, right?" "Somebody's killed Sammy," she said. "If you're cops, listen, he killed Sammy Sal." "Who's Sammy?" the one in the torn jacket said. "I worked with him at Allied. Sammy Dupree, he got shot." "Who shot him?" "Rydell." "Shut fuck up." "She's telling us she's got information regarding a possible homicide, and you're telling me to shut up?" "Yes, I tell you, shut fuck up." "Well, baby, he will explain." And her arm twisted up so she'd go with him. Svobodov had insisted on cuffing him to Chevette Washington. Said he and Orlovsky needed their hands free in case any of these bridge people caught on they were taking the girl off. But if they were taking her in, how come they hadn't read her any Miranda or even told her she was under arrest? She just didn't look to Rydell like she'd sit down on some guy's chest with a razor and haul his tongue out the hard way. Well, she did have that knife when Svobodov shook her down, plus a pocket phone and the damn glasses everybody was after. The Russians were real happy about that, and now they were tucked away safe in the inside pocket of Svobodov's flak vest. They came out into some lights, about where Rydell had first laid his eyes on Chevette Washington. Looking down to keep track of his footing, Rydell saw she was wearing black SWAT trainers just like his. "Hey," he said, "made your footwear." And Svobodov jammed the muzzle of that H&K hard into the joint of Rydell's jaw, just in front of his right ear, and said, "Fuckhead, you don't talk to her." But just after the Russian had pulled the gun out of his ear, Rydell had registered something behind him. This big bear of a long hair blinking out at them from this little doorway. As they walked out between those tank-trapped slabs, he could see Freddie, with his butt propped against the front fender of the Patriot, bobbing his head to something on earphones. And Warbaby there in his long quilted coat, his hat jammed down level with those VL glasses. Looked like a refrigerator, if a refrigerator could lean on a cane. And the Russian's gray tanker pulled up nose to nose with the Patriot, armored tires, and that graphite mesh rhino chaser screaming cop car at anybody who was interested. As indeed some were, Rydell saw, a thin crowd of bridge people watching from various perches on the concrete slabs and food wagons. And somebody in the Russian's car, hunched down, knees up in the shotgun seat. "Get this fucking cuff off," Rydell said to Warbaby, raising his wrist. The crowd saw the cuffs then. There was a ripple of reaction, voices. Warbaby looked at Svobodov. "You get it?" "Here." Svobodov touched the front of his London fog. Warbaby nodded, looked at Chevette Washington, then at Rydell. "Good man. Take the cuffs off." Orlovsky took Rydell's wrist, slid a mag strip into the slot in the cuff. "Get in the car," Warbaby said to Rydell. "They haven't read her any Miranda," Rydell said. "Get in the car. You're driving, remember?" "She under arrest, Mr. Warbaby?" Freddie giggled. "Rydell," Warbaby said, "get in the car now. We've done our part here." The passenger side door of the gray car opened. A man got out. He had those deep smile creases down his cheeks, like somebody had carved them there. Then he did smile, and it was about 2/3 gum and 1/3 teeth with gold at the corners. "That's him," Chevette Washington said, in this hoarse voice. "He killed Sammy." And that was when the big long hair, the one Rydell had noticed back on the bridge, plowed this bicycle square into Svobodov's back. The bike probably weighed 100 pounds, and there must have been another 100 pounds of scrap metal piled up in the basket when Svobodov got nailed. Put him face down across the hood of the Patriot, Freddie jumping like a scalded cat. The long hair landed on top of Svobodov like a bear with rabies, grabbed him by the ears and started slamming his face into the hood. Orlovsky was pulling out his H&K, and Rydell saw Chevette Washington bend down, tug something out of the top of one SWAT shoe, jab it into Orlovsky's back, hit whatever armor he was wearing, but it put him off balance as he pulled the trigger. The first burst didn't seem to hit anything, but with Chevette Washington clawing at his gun arm, Orlovsky tried to turn it on her. Second burst went in the general direction of the crowd, people screaming, grabbing up kids. Rydell was behind Orlovsky when he tried to bring the gun up again, and, well, it was just one of those times. He side-kicked the Russian about 3 inches below the back of the knee, that third burst whooping almost straight up as Orlovsky went down. Freddie tried to grab Chevette Washington, seemed to see the screwdriver for the first time, and just managed to bring his laptop up with both hands. That screwdriver went right through it. Freddie yelped and dropped it. Rydell grabbed the loose cuff, the one that had been around his wrist, and just pulled. Opened the passenger side door of the Patriot, and hauled her right in after him. Getting into the driver's seat, he had a grandstand view of the long hair pounding Svobodov's bloody face into the hood. All these pieces of rusty junk jumping each time he did it. Key. Ignition. Rydell saw Chevette Washington's phone and the case with the VL glasses fall out of Svobodov's flak vest. Powered down the window and reached around. Somebody shot the long hair off Sabotov. Pop, pop, pop. And Rydell, stomping it in reverse, saw the man from the cop car swinging a little gun around, two-handed. The back of the Patriot slammed into something as Sabotov flew off the hood in a cloud of rusty chain. Chevette Washington was trying to get out of the passenger door, so he had to hang on to the cuff and spin the wheel one-handed. The passenger door slammed shut as he took it straight for the man with the big smile, who maybe got off one more before he had to get out of the way fast. He caught this one crazy glimpse in the dash mirror, out the back window, the bridge towering up like something wrapped in seaweed, and Warbaby taking one stiff-legged step, another, raising the cane straight out from his shoulder, pointing it at the Patriot like it was a magic wand or something. Then whatever came out of the end of Warbaby's cane took out the Patriot's back window, and Rydell hung a right so tight it almost tipped them over. "Jesus," said Chevette Washington, "what are you doing?" He didn't know. But hadn't he just gone and done it? She kept thinking she was going to die. The way he was driving, or anyway, those cops would be after them, or the one who shot Sammy. He reached over and grabbed the loose cuff, did something to it without taking his eyes off the street. He let go. Now it was locked shut. "Why'd you do that?" "So you don't snag it on something. Wind up cuffed to the door handle or a street sign. Take it off." "No key." She rattled it at him. "Take it off. Stick it up the sleeve of your jacket." She watched a muscle in his jaw work, like he was chewing gum, but he wasn't. Brown eyes, not old, 20s maybe, cheap clothes like Kmart stuff, all wet. Light brown hair cut too short, but not short enough. "Where are we going?" she asked him. "Fuck if I know," he said, gunning the engine a little. "Who are you?" "Rydell, Barry Rydell. Hey, this is a big fucking street, lights and everything." "Right." "Okay," he said and hung it. "Why?" "The hate. Lots of people up late. Cops don't like to go there." "Ditch this car there?" "Turn your back on it. 2 seconds is history." Up over a curb, hunks of crazed safety glass falling out of the frame where the back window had been. She hadn't even noticed that. He dug a soggy-looking wallet out of his back pocket and started pulling cards out of it. "I have to try to get some cash," she said. He looked at her. "You want to jump out of this car and run? Then you just go for it." Then he reached in his jacket pocket and pulled out the glasses and codes of his phone that she'd scooped up when the lights went out in Dissidence. Because she knew from Lowell that people in trouble need a phone. He dropped them in her lap. "Yours." He came back, thumb counting a fold of bills, stuck it down in his front jeans pocket, and got in. Then he did something in reverse with all four wheels, and the Ford sort of jumped up and backward into the street. "Shit," he said, jamming the gear thing around until he got what he needed, and they took off. "You a cop?" "No." "Security, like from the hotel?" "Uh-uh." "Well," she said, "what are you?" Streetlight sliding across his face seemed like he was thinking about it. "Up shit creek, without a paddle." Rydell looked back at the Patriot in the alley off 8th Street. After getting his suitcase from the trunk, he'd locked it and left the key under the driver's seat because he hadn't wanted to make it look too easy. "You sure somebody will take that?" he asked her. "We don't get out of here, they'll take us with it." She started walking. Rydell followed, Samsonite dangling. They just rounded the corner when Rydell heard the Patriot's engine start to rev. It gave him goosebumps, like something in a ghost story, because there hadn't been anybody back in there at all. "Look at the ground," Chevette Washington said. "Don't look up when they go by, they'll kill us." Rydell concentrated on the toes of his black swats. He heard the Patriot wheel out of the alley and draw up beside them, pacing them. His toes were making little squelching noises each time he took a step. And what if the last thing you knew before you died was just some pathetic discomfort like that? Like your socks were wet and you weren't ever going to get to change them. Rydell heard the Patriot take off, the driver fighting the unfamiliar American shift pattern. He started to look up. "Don't," she said. "Those friends of yours are what?" "Alley pirates," Lowell calls them. "Who's Lowell?" "You saw him in Dissidence." "That bar? This Lowell, he hang there?" "Yeah." "He your friend, Lowell? Your boyfriend?" "He's just somebody I used to know." "Fine." She looked at the Samsonite. "You got a gun or something in there?" "Dry socks, underwear." She looked up at him. "I don't get you." "Don't have to," he said. We're just walking, or you maybe know somewhere to go, like off this street. We want to look at some flash, she said to the fat man. He had a couple of things through each nipple. Looked like Yale locks. Kind of pulled him down there, and Rydell just couldn't look at them. He was big and soft and fat and covered with tattoos. Looked like he was wearing a suit of them. They made Rydell feel kind of dizzy, so he looked up at the walls, which were covered with more tattoos, like samples for you to pick from. My friend and I, we want to pick something out. Rydell looked at her. Just come this way. The fat man sort of jingled when he walked, and it made Rydell wince. May I bring you some complimentary tea? The fat man took them down a hallway and into a little room with a couple of wall screens and a leather sofa. I'll just bring your tea, he said, and shuffled out jingling. Why'd you say that? Rydell was looking around the room. Clean, blank walls, soft light, but no shadows. Because he'll leave us alone while we're trying to pick one, and because it'll take us so long to make up our minds. Rydell put his Samsonite down and sat on the couch. So we can stay here? Yeah, as long as we keep calling up Flash. What's that? She picked up a little remote and turned one of the wall screens on. Started blipping through the menus. High-res close-ups of tattooed skin. The fat man came back with a couple of big rough mugs of steaming tea on a little tray. Now you two take plenty of time, he said. And you want anything, just call. He went out, tray tucked under his arm, and closed the door behind him. The girl on the wall screen had a dragon on her left hip. Little tiny silver ring through the top edge of her belly button. Chevette flipped it to a big, sweaty biker arm with President Milbank's face looking out from it in shades of gray. Rydell struggled out of his damp jacket, noticing the ripped shoulder, the cheap white stuffing popping out. He dropped it behind the couch. So how come you know about this? Lowell, she said, flipping through more images. Rydell opened his Samsonite, got out a pair of socks, and started unlacing his SWAT shoes. Why don't you sit down, he said. You're making my neck hurt. She was pacing back and forth in front of the screens. He took off his wet socks and put the dry ones on. Hey, Rydell said. That guy in the raincoat back there, the one shot. Sammy. He shot Sammy up at Skinner's. He was after the glasses, and Sammy had them, and... Wait a second. The glasses. Everybody wants the glasses. You think I know what they are? You don't know why people are after them? She gave him a look you might give a dog that had just told you it was a good day to spend all your money on one particular kind of lottery ticket. Let's start over, Rydell suggested. You tell me where you got the glasses. From her description, he knew her asshole up in the Morrissey had been the star of that X-rated fax of war babies, the naturalized Costa Rican, and the ones Svobodov and Orlovsky had been investigating, if they had been. Shit, he said in the middle of something she was trying to tell him. What? Nothing, keep talking. The Russians were bent, and he knew that. They were homicide, they were bent, and he'd bet dollars to donuts they weren't even investigating the case. Chevette was on a roll of her own now, and she was saying how Lowell was a guy who could, get things done with computers, if you had the money. And that sort of scared her because he was always talking about the cops and how he didn't have to worry about them. Rydell nodded, automatically flipping through a couple more pictures of tattoos. Desire. Rydell blinked. What? Republic of Desire. What is? Why, Lowell says the cops won't ever bother him. But I told him he was full of shit. Hackers, Rydell said. You haven't heard a word I said. No, Rydell said. No, that's not true. Desire, Republic of. Run that one by again, okay? I said, Lowell bullshits about that, how he's connected up with this Republic of Desire. How they can do anything they like with computers, so anybody messes with him is going to get it. No shit, Rydell said. You ever see these guys? You don't see them. Not like live. You talk to them on the phone, or like with goggles. And that's the wildest. Why? Because they look like lobsters and shit. Or some TV star, anything. But I don't know why I'm telling you. Because I'll nod out otherwise. Let me see those glasses. She reached over and got her jacket. Got out the case with the glasses, the phone. Handed him the glasses. Flipped open the phone's keypad. Hey, Rydell said, touching her hand. They'll have your number for sure. You dial out on that or even take a call. They'll be in here in about 10 minutes. We won't have this number, she said. It's one of Codes' phones. I took it off the table and the lights went out. Thought you said you didn't just steal things. Well, she said, if Codes had it, it's stolen already. Codes trades them off people in the city. Then Lowell gets somebody to tumble them and change the numbers. She tapped the pad, held the little phone to her ear. Dead, she said, shrugging. Here, Rydell said, putting the glasses down and taking the phone. What's old Codes trade for these anyway? He ran his thumbnail around the back of the phone, looking for the place where you could pry it open. Well, she said, stuff. He popped the case, saw a tightly rolled mini Ziploc wedged in there beside the battery. It had pushed the contacts out of alignment. He took it out and unrolled it. This type of stuff? He looked at her. If this is 4-thiobusculin, it's a controlled substance. You don't do this stuff, do you? No, well, once or twice. Lowell did sometimes. Well, just don't do any around me, because I've seen what it does. Nice, normal people do a couple of hits of this, they go snake shit crazy. He handed it to her and picked up the phone, trying to get the battery back where it belonged. Dial tone, he said. Who do you want to call? I'll try Fontaine. Who? He does Skinner's electricity and stuff. She dialed a number and put the phone to her ear. His eyes closed and his head hit the back of the couch so hard it almost woke him up. Yamazaki stood on Skinner's roof, pant legs flapping in a breeze that gave no hint of last night's storm, looking out at the city washed in a strange iron light. How could they understand this in Osaka, in Tokyo? Yo! On the roof! Someone called. Yamazaki turned, saw a thin black man atop the tangle of girders that braced the upper end of Skinner's lift. He wore a thick tweed overcoat and a crocheted cap. Name's Fontaine, the man said. Chevette called me. Told me to get over here and see if Skinner got through the blow all right. I make sure his lift's running and all. He bathing now, Yamazaki said. In the storm, he become confused. He doesn't seem to remember. Have some power for you in about another half an hour, the man said. Skinner got coffee on? Yes, Yamazaki said. Do with a cup about now. Yes, please, Yamazaki said and bowed. The black man smiled. Yamazaki scrambled down through the hatch. Skinner-san, a man named Fontaine. He is your friend. Skinner was struggling into yellowed thermal underwear. Useless bastard. Still don't have any power? Yamazaki unlatched the hatch in the floor and hauled it open. Fontaine eventually appeared at the bottom of the ladder, a battered canvas tool bag in either hand. Putting one down and slinging the other over his shoulder, he began to climb. The fuel cell's buggered, Skinner said as Fontaine pushed his bag ahead of him through the opening. We're working on it, boss. Had us a big old storm here. Fontaine looked at Yamazaki. Chevette says she might not get back here for a while. But she's not going to be around. You're going to need somebody to take care of things for you. Take care of myself, Skinner said. I know that, boss. We got a couple of fried servos in your lift down there. Take a few days to get that going for you. Need you somebody to bring you food and all. Scooter can do it. Yamazaki blinked. That right? Fontaine raised his eyebrows at Yamazaki. You stay up here and take care of Mr. Skinner? I would be honored to stay with Skinner-san if you wish. Do what you like, Skinner said, and began laboriously stripping the sheets from his mattress. Chevette told me you might be up here, Fontaine said. Some kind of university guy. So maybe you people worried about uninvited guests. He took out something wrapped in an oily rag, looked to see that Skinner wasn't observing him, and tucked the thing behind the glass jars on the shelf above the table. That's a 38 special. 6 rounds of hollow point. You use it, do me a big favor, and toss it off the side, okay? It's of dubious provenance. Yamazaki thought of Lovelace. Swallowed. You gonna be okay up here? Fontaine asked. Yes, Yamazaki said. Yes, thank you. It was 10:30 before they finally had to hit the street. Chevette started shaking the guy's shoulder. He grunted and tried to brush her hand away. Wake up, we gotta go. Jesus, he sat up, knuckling his eye. We gotta go, manager will be in soon. He dug behind the couch for his jacket. Look at that, he said, sticking his fingers into the rip in the shoulder. Brand new last night. Now they were walking past this bagel place and the smell of the morning's baking about made her faint from hunger. She was thinking maybe they'd better go in there and get a dozen in a bag, take it with them, when Rydell put his hand on her shoulder. She turned her head and saw this big shiny white RV had just turned onto Haight in front of them, headed their way. Rydell was staring like he couldn't believe it, and now it was pulling up right beside them, this gray-haired old lady powering down the window and leaning out the driver's side saying, "Young man, excuse me, but I'm Danica Elliott, and I believe we met yesterday on the plane from Burbank." Danica Elliott was this retired lady from Altadena, but that was down in SoCal. And she'd flown up to San Francisco, she said, on the same plane as Rydell to get her husband moved to a different cryogenic facility. Well, not her husband exactly, but his brain, which had frozen when he died. She seemed like a real nice lady to Chevette, but she sure could go on about this stuff, so that after a while Rydell was just driving and nodding his head like he was listening. And Chevette, who was navigating, was mostly paying attention to the map display on the RV's dash, plus keeping a lookout for police cars. Mrs. Elliott said she decided to rent this RV and drive it back to Altadena. Just take her time and enjoy the trip. Trouble was, she didn't know San Francisco, and she'd picked it up that morning at this rental place on 6th and gotten lost looking for a freeway. Did Rydell know the city, and could he drive her to where she could get on the highway to Los Angeles? Rydell had sort of gawked at her for a minute, then shook himself and said he'd be glad to, and this was his friend Chevette, who knew the city, and he was Barry Rydell. Mrs. Elliott said Chevette was a pretty name. "You know," Chevette said, "I don't get something to eat soon, I think I'll die." And Mrs. Elliott started making a fuss about how Rydell should stop immediately and get something for Chevette, and how sorry she was she hadn't thought to ask if they'd had breakfast. Then she brightened. "Chevette, dear, if you'll just go in the back, you'll find a fridge. I'm sure the rental people have put a snack basket in there." Sounded fine to Chevette. She undid her harness and edged back between her seat and Mrs. Elliott's. There was a little door there, and when she went through it, the lights came on. "Hey," she said, "it's a whole little house back here." "Enjoy," said Mrs. Elliott. She sat on the bed and ate a small cheese, a bunch of crackers, a chocolate bar that was made in France, and drank a bottle of water. When she was done, she put the empty bottle and the torn paper and stuff in a little wastebasket built into the wall, took off her shoes, and lay back on the bed. It was strange to stretch out in a bed in a little room that was moving. She didn't know where, and she wondered where she'd be tomorrow. Just before she fell asleep, she remembered that she still had Coates' bag of dancers stuck down in her pants. She'd better get rid of that. She figured there was enough there to go to jail for. She woke up when he lay down beside her, the RV moving, but she knew it must have stopped before. The lights were off. "Who's driving?" she said. "Mrs. Armbruster." "Who?" "Mrs. Elliott. Mrs. Armbruster was this teacher I had. Looked like her." "Where's she driving to?" "Los Angeles. Told her I'd take over when she got tired. Told her not to bother waking us up when she goes through at the state line. Lady like that, if she tells them she's not carrying any agricultural products, they'll probably let her through without checking back here." "What if they do?" He was close enough to her on the narrow bed that she could feel it when he shrugged. "Rydell? Huh. What'll we do when we get to Los Angeles?" But he didn't answer, and after a while he started to snore. Rydell opened his eyes. Vehicle not moving. He held his Timex up in front of his face and used the dial light. 3:15 p.m. Chevette was curled up beside him in her biker jacket. Felt like sleeping next to a piece of old luggage. He rolled over until he could find the shade over the window beside him and raise it a little. As dark out there as it was in here. He got up and felt his way to the front. A little bit of light there coming from under the door. He found the handle. Eased it open a crack. "Hey there." Gold at the edges of a smile. Square little automatic pointing at Rydell's eye. He'd swung the passenger side bucket around and tilted it back. Had his boots up on the middle seat. Had the dome light turned down low. "Where's Mrs. Elliott?" "Mrs. Elliott is gone." Rydell opened the door the rest of the way. "She work for you?" "No," the man said. "She is intent secure." "They put her on that plane to keep track of me?" The man shrugged. Rydell noticed that the gun didn't move at all when he did that. He was wearing surgical gloves, and that same long coat he'd had on when he'd gotten out of the Russian's car. How'd she know to pick us up by that tattoo parlor? Well, maybe it had to be good for something. He had a couple of people on you for backup. Tell me something. You the one did that Blix guy up in the hotel?
I don't see what it's got to do with you.
Rydell thought about it. I saw a picture of it. You just don't look that crazy.
It's my job,
He said. He took his feet off the center bucket.
Just do this. Slowly. Very. Get in the driver's seat. Put your hands on the wheel. 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Keep them there. If you don't keep them there, I'll shoot you behind your right ear. But you won't hear it.
He reminded Rydell of a vet talking to a horse. Rydell did like he was told. He couldn't see anything outside, just dark and the reflections from the dome light. Where are we? He asked.
You like malls, Rydell? You got malls back in Knoxville?
Rydell looked at him sideways.
Eyes front, please.
Yeah, we got malls.
This one didn't do so well.
Rydell heard him give the bulkhead a kick with the heel of one boot.
Miss Washington, rise and shine, Miss Washington. Do us the favor of your presence.
Rydell heard the double thump as she startled from sleep, tried to jump up, hit her head, fell off the bed. Then he saw her white face reflected in the windshield, there in the doorway. Saw her see the man, the gun, not the screaming kind. You shot Sammy Sal, she said.
You're trying to electrocute me,
the man said, like he could afford to see the humor in it now.
Come out here, turn around, and straddle the central console very slowly. That's right. Now lean forward and brace your hands on the seat.
She wound up next to Rydell, her legs on either side of the instrument console facing backward. Gave him about a 2-inch difference of arc between shooting either one of them in the head.
I want you to take your jacket off, so you'll have to take your hands off the seat to do that. Take plenty of time.
When she'd gotten it to where she could shrug it off her left shoulder, it fell against the man's legs.
Are there any hypodermic needles in here?
He said.
Any blades, dangerous objects of any kind?
No, she said.
How about electrical charges? You don't have a great record for that.
Just the asshole's glasses and a phone. Rydell watched the gloved hand, open the case by feel, take out the black glasses. That was the only time those eyes left him, to check those glasses, and that took about a second. That's them, Rydell said. You got them now. The hand put them back in their case, closed it.
Yes.
Now what? The smile went away. When it did, it looked like he didn't have any lips. Then it came back, whiter and steeper.
You think you can get me a Coke out of the fridge? All the windows and door back there sealed.
You want a Coke? You're going to shoot me when I get up.
No, he said. Not necessarily, because I want a Coke. My throat's a little dry.
She got off the console and edged through into the back where the fridge was. Diet or regular, she said.
Diet, he said. Please.
Classic or decaf?
Classic.
He made a little sound that Rydell thought might be a laugh. Kind of messy, she said. My hand's shaking. Rydell looked sideways, saw him take the red can, some brown cola dripping off the side.
Thank you. You can take your pants off now.
What?
Those black ones you're wearing. Just peel them down slow, but I like the socks. Say, we'll keep the socks.
Rydell caught the expression on her face, reflected in the black windshield, then saw how it went sort of blank. She bent, working the tight pants down.
Now get back on the console. That's right. Just like you were. Let me look at you. You want to look too, Rydell?
Rydell turned, saw her squatting there, her bare legs smooth and muscular, dead white in the glow of the dome light. The man took a long swallow of Coke, watching Rydell around the rim.
Not bad, huh, Rydell?
With a nod towards Chevette, Washington.
Some potential there, I'd say.